Welcome, nerds, to another episode of the Nerd Rundown Podcast, where we cover the latest in the nerd world of movies, TV, and more. I'm Erik Hare, and with me today is my fellow dad nerd, Morgan Santo, a.k.a. Big Morg 3000.
Hi, everybody.
We want to thank everyone for watching and listening in. We really do appreciate it. You can find us on social media, YouTube at the Nerd Rundown, and you can listen to our podcast on all the major podcast services. So we had a good comment this week from one of our favorite YouTubers, Haywood Jablomi. He said he's excited to find out that we are on I think it was Spotify or one of those two. So yeah, we're available anywhere. Haywood, you can listen to us whenever and wherever you want to. So today we have a pretty fun show, I think. Being Halloween, we wanted to kind of get a good kind of theme going this week. So Morgan and I have a soft spot for the undead, and so this week's episode we're going to be talking about zombies and all the good and bad that comes with that subject matter. So we'll be covering that. We'll cover the latest news in the rundown as usual, and then we're going to finally cap it off with a pretty fun, I think. It's a deep nerd. We have a deep nerd question from the NRDbox. So there's a lot of stuff in there. But first we'll get started with the rundown. So this week was kind of a big week for trailers. We had quite a bit of stuff kind of pop up, and then we got some good news with some other stuff. So we'll kick it off with Pixar and Disney dropping a trailer for a project I didn't even know was really coming. I hadn't really heard much about it, but we got a trailer for Lightyear, and so this I have to say looks amazing. I mean, just looked absolutely amazing. I could not believe, like, the CGI in it looks just terrific. Right. It looks really, really great. But what did you think of the Lightyear trailer?
Yeah, I remember hearing something about this coming out however long ago when news first dropped, because I remember they talked about how Chris Evans was going to voice Lightyear, and I was like, well, that's weird. Like,
right.
And Tim Allen, he does everything Disney. Why wouldn't he be doing it?
Right.
And then I just forgot all about it. That was it. And then the trailer just drops, the teaser trailer.
Yeah.
Like you said, visually it was good. It looks like it's going to be a fun movie. Like, it's going to be good. And I understand, I guess the basis of it is this is who the toy is based on.
Correct. Yes.
So that's why it's Chris Evans. It's a different voice because it's not, the generic toy voice they use for all the toys.
Right. Right.
No, I mean, it's good. I'm always happy when there's a movie coming out that I am interested in seeing.
Yes.
But also my family will see. So
right. Yeah.
It works out great for me.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because last weekend I was in Virginia visiting with my dad and my brother. We went and saw the new James Bond movie. We also saw Dune. And my Uncle Frank came up and we watched, because he lives down in the Richmond area. And so we had him come up so I could help him with a project for YouTube that he was working on. And so he and I had a conversation a long time ago about, mainly we were talking about like SpongeBob, but we were also talking about the Despicable Me movies and stuff like that. And he said, he says a lot of adults miss out on some really great content because they don't take that stuff very seriously, or they don't, allow themselves to, he says, especially like SpongeBob, there are so many adult jokes buried in those shows, and same thing with like Despicable Me, and Pixar has done a great job with those, where they mix in a lot of adult stuff in there, and so that you're watching it and you're like, they just give you a little hat tip or a little nod to the moms and dads that are watching this stuff. But they really have some tremendous movies that are out there, and so Pixar just does a great job every time, and this one looks like it's not going to disappoint us at all. I think we're definitely getting a really cool movie coming out of this. The music was amazing. I thought the music to it was really, really amazing. They've done a really good job. I think of making that character just a little bit different from the toy looking character, and so, which I think is great. So I've heard the same thing, that it is the toy, it is the show or the movie that Andy would have watched and been like, oh my gosh, I have to go out and get the Buzz Lightyear toy, and then he brings the toy, that he gets the toy for his birthday or whatever, and then Toy Story takes off. So it's a spin-off from inside the Toy Story, so it gets a little convoluted, but at the same time. So I think it looks anything Pixar puts out, I'm most likely going to plank down money on. What will be interesting to me, because this kind of transitions into our next item on the rundown, is whether or not this will be theater exclusive or not, because we did get moving on to the second item in the rundown, is we did get confirmation from Legendary Pictures and Warner Brothers that Dune 2 is a go. So they have seen enough from the international box office, and then from the first week in the theaters here in the United States, that Dune 2 is going to be green lit, and that it will be a theater exclusive. So they're not going to cross, at least what they're saying right now is they're not going to cross release the second one with HBO Max, which makes sense to me, because I think there's these streaming services are going to have to stand on their own 2 feet at some point or another, and you can't keep cannibalizing your content and putting it out on these streaming services, because I don't think there's enough people signing up to the service to make that worth it long term, because it's like, hey, I'll just sign up for a month, watch Dune, and then I'll turn it off. And it's like, well,
right.
If you had 3 people going to see the movie, that's $70 at the theater, $60-$70 that would have gone to the box office receipts, and the guy pays $10 or whatever for HBO Max, and it's like, I'm going to disconnect it for the next month or whatever. So we'll see how that goes, but so let's talk about the news that Dune 2 gets released, and then let's kind of do a mini review of what we liked about the first chapter 1, I guess, of Dune part 1, I think is what they said, part 1, Dune 2 Dune part 1. So what are your thoughts on the Dune 2 news?
I mean, I'm happy that it has been officially it's a go for the sequel, because that would have just annoyed the hell out of me,
right,
if they did do a sequel. I agree to it. I just want to touch on it quick with I think these apps are going to get away from the streaming at home a lot quicker than we thought they would, especially with HBO, because at least Disney and some of the other ones where you still had to pay $30 to watch the movie. Right. Whereas HBO is like, no, as long as you got the app, you got it. So this movie didn't open up to the best numbers domestically. Which I think it would have done phenomenally better if you had to go to the theaters to see
Agreed.
So I'm happy that it's getting a sequel, because I was nervous that was going to hurt it. Now the movie itself, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I saw it in IMAX. I went. Definitely the way to see this movie. Definitely the way to see it. The visuals, the sounds, it's meant for that experience.
Absolutely.
The sandworms and everything, like, you got to see that in the big. There's so many cool scenes, and and in this, and it's just visually stunning. Now I'll admit I'm going into it nothing. I didn't watch the original Dune.
Sure.
I'm not even going to bother trying to read the book. Basically, for what I've heard, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to stick to these movies because I've heard they're decently faithful. This one so far. So the only gripe I had with it, and I'm not going to ruin anything, I'm not going to spoil it, is the movie I think should have ended like 20 minutes sooner.
Okay.
And then I think it would have been perfect.
Okay.
I think where they ended it was an odd spot to end it.
Sure.
That's the only gripe I had with it. Still great.
Yeah.
But that's the only gripe I really had with it.
Yeah.
You go ahead. I mean, I won't go too.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting critique about the where they ended it. I don't think I had an opinion or a thought, as to where that was. I didn't think it was good, or I thought it felt like a decent spot, like, okay,
Gotcha.
it's kind of a decent spot to do it. But now that you say it, I could see where you're coming from as far as, where the break in the movie came. You could have probably done it a little bit sooner and maybe had more of a cliffhanger type scenario, or
Right.
whatever. So agreed. See it on an IMAX at a minimum. See it on an IMAX, or if it's like a Cinemark, where they have the XD, whatever the biggest screen that you can see it on is, see it there. I had a friend of mine invite me on Wednesday, and unfortunately it was Jackson's, my son Jackson's birthday that day. So we had kind of plans and stuff like that to do it. But I had a buddy of mine invite me to go see it on the IMAX, the 70 millimeter IMAX, so the big 90-foot screen, which I saw Interstellar on, and holy smokes, I mean, just it's one of the most amazing screens I've ever seen in my life. So I, anytime I get a chance to watch a movie on it, I try and do it. But Dune was spectacular. I mean, it really was. I know we kind of throw the term epic around quite a bit, but it really was an epic experience to watch this movie, because the music was tremendous. Hans Zimmer's music is just, I mean, the guy is always on point as it is. I saw two movies last weekend and he scored both of them. The James Bond movie he scored, and then the Dune he scored, and the guy is amazing. Where they chose to shoot that film, and the vistas and the scenery, and just spectacular. And the CGI, the way they mixed the CGI with like the live action stuff, we had kind of talked about it in the pre-show. You mentioned that it was seamless, the way they did it. The costumes were amazing. The cast is phenomenal. Timothy Chalamet, his performance was really, really good.
Go far.
Jason Momoa really kind of stole a lot of that movie. I thought his character was really, really good. So I have a question for you, and I hope it's not too much of a spoiler, but I think if you do a little bit of research on, there's a series of events that take place, and it seems like everybody gets wiped out, to some extent. Do you think that the Gurney character is still around? Because you never actually see,
Yeah, and that's so I'm hoping so, because I brought that up immediately after watching it with I saw with my buddy Jeremy, who lives fairly close to you guys. He visited, and I was like, well, technically you don't see that, so that's a classic. But I agree, the characters were great, the way they did it. I love the joke of, you have all this stuff, and then the main guy is Paul. You have all these cool names, Future Paul, and the Duncan, Idaho, of course, Jason Momoa.
That's such an awesome name.
That's the best name you could ever have, Duncan, Idaho. No, I know what you mean, and it's, I don't want to say too much, because it's still decently new. I don't want to people can still see it. The what's his name, the father,
Oscar Isaac's character.
Thank you. Even his role in it, the way he's in it, he's great, and
he really is.
It's amazing how stronger that man looks when you put a beard on him.
For sure.
Like,
For sure.
It's like, wow, like he looks like he's going to command a house and an army, and like,
right. And it's a spectacular beard. I mean, your beard is epic in my, I'm trying to, like, this is it. This is the best I can do, but yours is epic. It's
his was like, and I heard that they people have been joking that they shaved Momoa.
Yeah.
So that way Oscar looked, he stood out more to get rid of Momoa's beard. But no, I definitely recommend seeing it. Everybody,
for sure,
see it in IMAX.
Yes,
it's not the same on home. And I'll say too, people talk about, the story's confusing. I mean, it seemed like a pretty straightforward story to me.
Yeah.
Classic case of an emperor afraid of losing his power.
Right. Right. Yeah. The politics in the show are really interesting. And it's very Game of Thrones-ish. In to some extent, you never actually see the emperor. So he's this kind of distant thing, but you can, gosh.
I mean, and Skarsgård in it.
Yeah, Skarsgård's.
Oh man, like.
And he's even toned down from where the book is. I've heard, like, he's like a predatory guy, and they in the book, and they kind of tamp it down and really don't show much of him at all. But what scenes, it's almost like Darth Vader, where if you really add up the time in the Star Wars movies, he's only on the screen for like 15 minutes. Over 3 movies, he's only on the screen for 15 minutes, but he is a super great villain, and that's the way this Baron Harkonnen kind of seems. He just is really, really sinister. So I all in all, go see it on the biggest screen you can see it on, because a 65-inch TV is really great, or 55-inch TV is really great, but only if you're this close to it, so because you really need to see this on a giant screen to really appreciate, and the orthocopters, I think, were super cool. The dragonfly things. The sound effects from those were super cool.
Yeah, all of it was just it
was really great.
Definitely see it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so moving on to the next item in the rundown list. So Netflix dropped a lot this week on us. They dropped 2 or 3 trailers, more than that actually, but we're only going to cover 3 of them specifically. We did get a Tiger King. Tiger King 2 is coming. I did not watch the first Tiger King, so I don't know. I don't know. I guess. Did you watch Tiger King? Did you?
Of course I did.
Yeah. Okay.
It was so ridiculous.
It was it. Yeah.
It's one of those you have to watch it and see what it is and what the world is talking about.
Yeah. I guess I'll have to watch it. So, but so we're getting a second season of Tiger King. I don't know what they're going to call it or whatever, but we got a trailer for a movie from Sandra Bullock that called The Unforgivable, and wow, I mean the trailer looks really good. Sandra Bullock, who I love, I mean I absolutely adore and love as like America's sweetheart. She's a vastly underrated comedian. It's like she is really, really funny. Her delivery is great. Her timing is really great. That movie she made with Melissa McCarthy, The Heat, is one of my favorites. I'll put that on at night to fall asleep to, because it just cracks me up every time.
Well, I like that one she did too. Was it The Proposal? Is that what it's called, with Ryan Reynolds? Yeah, I mean, I like that Ryan one Reynolds too. They have a great chemistry.
She was really great in that.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but this is definitely a different take on her. This is a very dramatic role, and she looks really, really great in it. Her range over the length of her career, her range has only gotten better. I think. So this looks great. The cast looks phenomenal. We get John Bernthal of the Punisher fame and other stuff, and we'll tie him in a little bit later into the show. One of my favorite actors of all time, Vincent D'Onofrio, who, you know, the original Thor himself, from Adventures in Babysitting. And then Viola Davis,
she's phenomenal.
She is just an amazing actress. So we get
powerhouse.
Yep, for sure. So, and then there's quite a few other people who I think are kind of some up and coming faces in Hollywood. So, you know, so we'll see how that shakes out. What'd you think of the trailer?
Yeah, I mean, it looked really good. The acting is going to be, I think it's going to be good. It's going to be one of those movies where you kind of watch it once, I think, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have that replay with the drama they're going for. And I mean, the basic synopsis is, it seems like she killed a cop,
right,
went to jail, and she gets out of jail after so many years, and she's dealing with the consequences of that, and
right,
how people view her, and
right.
You know, they don't reveal too much about why she did it, or so that'll come out. But it seems like it's something to do with her sister,
right, that
she pretty much raised, and so the movie is her trying to get back to normal and find her sister and do all this. But it looks very good. I'm really excited to see it. It's coming to Netflix, so.
Yeah, for sure. So, I feel the same way. So I think I definitely will watch this one for sure. I love Sandra Bullock. It's coming December 10th to Netflix. So I think it'd be great. I think this would be a fun. I shouldn't say fun. I think this would be a good movie to watch with my wife. You know, Stace will watch this, and we'll both enjoy it. You know, and I have a feeling it's gonna be really good. So yeah, so definitely looking forward to the Unforgivable. Next up on the trailer watch that we got was The Witcher Season 2. So looks like we're getting more Henry Cavill, which most of our female listeners, I'm sure, will enjoy, you know, because he's not ugly. You know, I mean, hey, who knows? You know, I don't know. Maybe if I'm, you know, lonely enough, who knows? But you know,
I don't know if I'd say no.
Yeah, he's a handsome fella, that's for certain. So, watching the James Bond movie, I you know, last weekend, I thought to myself, he would be a great pick to follow on as Bond, you know, if they go in that direction. So I did watch him in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I thought he was really good as kind of a spy in that one. So very good. But yeah, so we got the trailer for The Witcher 2, which I have not watched the first season of The Witcher, and not because I'm not much of a fantasy person, despite the fact that I enjoyed like the Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. I'm not much of a fantasy fan. Like, I don't really get into it. But did you watch the first season of The Witcher?
I did. Yeah. I enjoyed it. The first season does some good time hopping stuff where you don't realize when certain things are taking place at first, and then it kind of like puts it together. The action in it was good. The way they filmed it, I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay.
You know, I'm glad it's being continued.
Yeah.
I always get nervous sometimes with this stuff. You know how it goes.
I hear you.
I get a second season, especially on a Netflix. It seems easy to just be like, all right, we're done.
Yeah.
You know. No, I think this will be good, and I'm excited to see Henry Cavill or Cavill, however he says.
However
he prefers. Yeah.
I
like
language.
him in a lot of stuff he does. I think he's underrated, I would say. Even though he is a superstar,
yes,
so to speak.
Yeah.
He still is underrated because a lot of the stuff he's in, or that we know him for, like Superman. Yeah. You know, the acting isn't quite, when you hear Superman, you're not like, oh, let's see how the acting is.
Sure.
You know,
yeah.
He's a stoic, but no, I think he's underrated, and he does a great job in the show, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah. So just kind of dovetail off that, maybe we'll try not to go, Darren's not here to keep me on track. So, I'll go down a rabbit hole. So last week on the airplane, I actually had downloaded Man of Steel because it was one that I had wanted to watch again, because it's been a long time since I've watched Man of Steel, and that movie really holds up as a really good movie. I mean, it's a good movie, and it's a shame that they didn't as we always bag on DC, they can't get out of their own way and capitalize on the good stuff. I get the controversy at the end of the movie, of what the situation is, but I mean, at the end of the day, Zod put him into a situation where he doesn't have a choice. There really is no choice there. There's at least that I could see. Maybe that's a problem, is I'm just not creative enough or whatever. But he did.
I think he took too long to do what he did.
Yeah, you're actually not wrong. So, but he really is great. Cavill really is great as. And I think this gets missed with a lot of people, because I've harped on it a bunch of times too, where you talk about the key to Batman is a good Bruce Wayne. If you can have that really good dual personality stuff, then it really does well. But I think that dichotomy with Clark Kent is really good too, and Cavill's Clark Kent is really good. I mean, really good. And they took a lot of time to introduce you to and really bring out Superman from Clark Kent. So you really got a chance to see who Clark is, and you could see how, and I never watched Brightburn. I don't know if you did or not, but I did not watch Brightburn. And my understanding is that that's the complete opposite of like, what if the decisions were different? But, the fact that the whole bus scene where he saves all those kids, even though those kids are mean to him, and stuff like that. And they talk about him, and stuff, cause he's not the same. I loved that they showed him when he was in elementary school struggling with controlling these powers that he's having, and I thought that was great. And that's a natural thing, is like, if he were to come here and this would be this way, wouldn't he struggle with like how to figure out how to control these different things, and then but then he's faced with this situation in the bus, and you can clearly see that he's a good person. And I think that's, the thing. So I don't know. I would like to see more, I'd like to see Cavill do more. I'd like to see more Cavill as Superman. So we'll kind of go back to,
gotta watch The Witcher.
Yeah, right. So, but definitely have to watch The Witcher. My wife just got done watching, which show is it that he was originally on? It was an HBO series. I'm trying to think. So I did see him quite a bit. He was on The Tudors. She watched that show, The Tudors, that was on HBO a long time ago. But yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah. So The Witcher. I thought the trailer looked really good, and I think I actually will go back and watch the season 1 and then try and pick up on season 2, because I did think it looked really good. His character's super cool. Kind of badass looking and stuff. So we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, the Mission Impossible movie he was in, he was pretty good there. So, okay. So moving on from on The Witcher season 2 to what I thought was a really spectacular trailer for, and I'm not an anime fan, so I don't have any prior knowledge of the material, which is this Cowboy Bebop, which is a Japanese anime series that was on, and holy smokes, like, it looked spectacular. I mean, the costumes looked spectacular. John Cho, who I see him on this trailer and I think to myself, holy smokes, Harold has come a long way, like, he has come a long way from his start. I loved him as Sulu on the Star Trek series. I thought he was really great in the Star Trek movies. He looks spectacular. His hair looks amazing. His costume looks amazing in this trailer. I am really excited for Cowboy Bebop. I will definitely watch this one for sure. So it is very noir looking. The visuals were spectacular. What did you think? What did you think of the trailer?
I'm like you. I'm coming into it with nothing. I've never seen any of the original stuff, read anything, but I find that I'm kind of liking more and more now coming into some things with not knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
Because then I don't expect certain things from it.
Right.
But the trailer, it was a good looking trailer. It looks like it's going to be a fun show.
Yeah,
there's going to be a great dynamic between the three main characters, the three leads there. The action sequences they showed look good. It has, like you said, kind of a noir style to it, but not. I think it's going to be good. I'm going to watch it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah, so kind of rounding out the rest of the cast. So it does look like they have some sort of team. There's three members in the team. So like we said, John Cho as Spike Spiegel, and then you've got Daniela Pineda as Faye Valentine, and it looks like Mustafa Shakir is going to play character named Jet Black. So again, I don't have any frame of reference on this one, so I don't know who any of these people are, who these characters are. I don't know the baggage that they're bringing. I don't have any of that stuff. But like I thought it was super Blade Runner-ish. Kind of looked Blade Runner-ish, but yet it had like this 1920s, 30s. Feel, but then you've got spaceships and other stuff. So it's super cool. The visuals just looked super cool, and the music sounded pretty good, at least in the trailer. And then, like I said, the costumes and everything else just looks really good. So I think Cowboy Bebop is definitely one we're going to be kind of keeping an eye on and watching. So that premieres in a couple weeks. I think it's the 19th of November. Is when that one drops. So that one I am really looking forward to. There's a couple of series kind of coming out that I'm. It's funny because I go from not having anything to watch to having way too much to watch. It's
exactly
in a short amount of time. So
it's too much content.
Yeah, sometimes there really is. So Cowboy Bebop looks really, really good, and I'm really excited about it. So now we'll kind of move into the back half of the rundown, and we'll kind of transition into this. Will kind of move us into our final, into our special segment, I guess, or the main segment of the show. So we got some reviews. The reviews are starting to come in for Zack. So a spinoff from Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead that he did on Netflix, came out earlier this summer. There was a character in there was a character in the movie that there was a couple of characters that really kind of stuck with you, in this one. One of them was this character Dieter, who is the safe cracker, and who's played by Matthias Schweigafor, I think is how you spell his last or pronounce his last name. I don't know. It's gonna be tough, but anyhow, they decided. So when he found out he was going to be doing this character, he went to Snyder and said, look, I have a whole backstory that I've built for this character. And Zach loved it. He was like, this is great. So do whatever, like if you want to do it, we should do it. So he's like, okay. So Matthias actually directed this. He wrote this, he directed this. I think him and Snyder worked together to write it, to kind of nail it down. But it's a prequel to Army of the Dead in that this takes place several years before. This takes place right around the time of the original outbreak of when things happen. So, and it's how he gets involved in safe cracking and stuff like that. So what did you think of the trailer of this? I think we kind of talked about the trailer, but what did you think of the trailer when you saw it a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, I always enjoy a good heist movie. Yeah. So, and that's what this is. It's a heist movie that, has some zombie stuff in the background.
Right. Yes.
So I want to watch it. Now, again, when it came to Army of the Dead, I was one of the few that were like, I am not saying it's a good movie.
Yes.
But I enjoyed the brainless fun of it.
Yes.
Which is okay sometimes. Yes. Now, the man who submitted our nerd question will fight me to the death on how horrible that movie is. And how he no longer trusts my opinion on anything. But I'm gonna watch it, and from what I hear, people are saying this actually is good. Yeah, and that's not me. That's
Right.
the world.
Yep.
Saying this one's actually good and not to sleep on it. You want to check it out.
Yeah.
And that could be because it's a heist movie instead of
right.
Mindless, brainless killing a bunch of zombie movies.
Right. Yeah.
So it'll be good. And you know, I know you're going to mention it too. And because along with this coming out, they did announce the I guess sequel or the third.
Yeah, no, it so kind of rounding out the cast on that Army of Thieves, and it is out and available now on Netflix, so you can watch it. I have not watched it yet. I'm hoping to be able to watch it this week. Is Natalie Emanuel, who is of Game of Thrones fame. She was the handmaiden to our Missandei, I think was her name in Game of Thrones. So she was to Khaleesi. She was Khaleesi's kind of handmaid. She was amazing, and she's not ugly in any way, shape, or form. So, and then Ruby O'Fee and Stuart Martin, I think, are a couple of other folks that are in there. Not a lot of people that you really know. Really, Natalie and I think Matthias are the only two that I really recognized from anything before. Right. So, but yeah, the heist stuff just looked amazing. It really looked good. So I'm looking forward to seeing this. That Dieter character just cracks me up.
Yeah, he's great.
He's so his accent, everything about it was just really funny. So, but yeah, so kind of moving into the last item on the rundown is the Planet of the Dead. So we did get a confirmation from Netflix and from Snyder that the sequel to one of the worst zombie movies ever made is
in the works.
Is a go. Yep, we're gonna get more. We're going to get more. So I actually tend to agree with you. I didn't hate Army of the Dead. I really didn't. I liked the heist angle to it. I thought that was cool. I liked the very beginning of the movie where you have this one guy break out. I thought it was interesting how they decided to kind of switch things up with how the zombies worked. I think there's a lot of stuff in there. The robot stuff, which I did not catch at the very beginning. You had to kind of point that out.
The aliens.
Yeah, the alien stuff. I remember seeing that. I remember seeing them go off and thought to myself, were those spaceships? You know, or what the heck was that? You know, but I mean, it's Area 51, so it's like, okay, I get it. You know, Area 51, but so yeah, so I will definitely see Planet of the Dead. I can tell you that much. You know, we don't have any news on it really, other than, you know, they kind of said that it's going to take place. I think they're going to bring back some of the character, which I imagine is like we'll see something come out of the nuclear blast area and stuff.
Right.
At the end of it, they alluded to one of the characters is you know, potentially infected, so we'll see you know how that kind of of course that's how they always do it, you know, but I have a feeling like I remember watching the movie thinking to myself, they're going to drop a nuclear bomb on this area and blow it up. That sounds like the worst idea ever, because like there's no way that you're going to be able to wipe out all of them, and then anything that you've built, like as far as the containers, is all going to be blown away. And so whoever makes it out of there, which there will be somebody or something that is going to make it out of there, it's now out. And as we've seen from recent experience, once a virus or something like that breaks out, it's really hard to contain it. So so Planet of the Dead. So we'll kind of move now. We're going to kind of move into our zombie genre segment. So we're going to talk about all the good and bad that comes with zombie movies, and it's pretty loaded. Like I don't think Hollywood will ever tire of generating zombie content, good or bad, you know, as far as what stuff's out there. So we'll kick off with talking about movies, then we'll talk about the video game stuff, and then we kind of want to wrap up with the TV show section of the zombie experience, and mainly The Walking Dead. Like that's the one that, you know, the big gorilla in the room that I want to talk about. But so from the movie's perspective, you know, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead is credited with, you know, really kicking off
the real start,
of where the genre started. So it is a classic, you know, it's a classic movie. It really is. There's not a ton of plot going in there.
Defend the house.
Yeah. So, but that's one of the great things about those types of things is you know, there's really not much depth to it, and that's kind of the simplicity of those types of movies that I enjoy, is that, you know, if a situation like that were to happen, would we even would you be watching the news going, you know, it's really weird, like all these things are popping up, you know, like it would just happen, and then you would react, and then it just becomes it's a local situation that you're just trying to deal with. You wouldn't think about the global implications, you wouldn't think anything like that. You would just be like, oh my god, I gotta try to stay alive, you know. So so movies wise, Night of the Living Dead is a classic, and it's not and Romero did a great job, I think, of kicking that off. So did you see Night of the Living Dead? Yeah.
It's one of those, you know, you kind of have to watch it, you know. Everybody should watch it just to see the origins, the roots. It's like you said, it's simple, but it's a great story,
right?
With a hell of an ending. So
yes,
you know, it's a rough ending, but it's good, and you really need to watch it just to see kind of where it all real started, as far as movies are concerned,
right?
The lore, and then you can get into the wealth of the never-ending I should say, of zombie movies that, you know, when thinking about this, you know, when doing this stuff, I'll be like, you know, let me check out some like zombie movies online and just see like you're just like, holy crap, like I didn't realize they made so many zombie movies that you know, you could tell from the cover they're probably not going to be good,
right? Like
Zombie, which is ZOO, Zombie, because it's at a zoo, and you know, like, you know, it's not going to be good, but
right. Well, you know, so from a movie perspective, we've gone from Romero's. I think you've hit peak content when you go from Romero's quintessential horror, you know, kicking off an entire genre, to my daughter watches on Disney a movie called Zombies, and they have
Zombies
like
1 and 2.
Zombies 1 and 2, and it's basically High School Musical with the undead out there, you know, and in which case right. Oh my gosh,
that soundtrack many a time.
It's yes, as have I. So, you know, and we're gonna get a third. They are filming the third one, and I think they actually wrapped shooting recently, and so fully expect to see. The
second one ended, I gotta see what.
Yeah, oh yeah, we're gonna dip into aliens at this point.
I know,
so it's like,
now.
Why not? You know, why not? We went from zombies to werewolves to you know, once Disney's done it, you're like, okay, we've reached peak content, but yeah, so there is a ton of junk zombie movies that are out there. I mean, just really, really bad. And I think you have a lot of horror fans, and you have a lot of B-movie horror fans. And the zombies, between zombies and vampires, it's just like, you know, they and even werewolves and stuff, it really does lend itself to abuse of content. I think, you know, it's just like, okay, well, we'll just make these guys as gross as we possibly can, and let's just make a it really is, you know. And so So there's not a lot of great content out there, or I should say it's not a lot. It requires a little more effort to make things more I guess mainstream, and to bring the genre up a little bit. So I want to talk about Will Smith's I Am Legend, which is a remake of a previous one that I think Charlton Heston was in. But I never saw that one. I only saw the Will Smith vehicle and loved it. I really, really loved it. I did watch the director's version of it, which I actually, I watched the original version and then I ended up watching the director's cut.
Yeah, the different ending.
And I really liked the director's cut. The way that ended, I thought was pretty good. So, you saw I Am Legend, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The Will Smith one. Yes.
Yep.
No, that's a great flick. And I like when movies can do a twist on the zombie thing.
Yeah.
Because that's not like your traditional zombie. It's like it's almost like a mix between a zombie and a vampire in a sense, just because of their weakness to the light. And, and I do like when a zombie movie or show, whatever it may be, gives you an origin to it that's realistic.
Correct.
Or, I shouldn't say it's just like, was it a comet with some space junk on it? Or whereas they were trying to develop a cure for cancer and
it
went south.
Wrong. Yeah.
It
went wrong.
Unfortunately, the cure and meddling with certain things, just, and that's a believable background because you can see how they could try and we're every day we're trying to cure cancer.
Right.
We're trying everything we can. And, it's a scary thought of something that was supposed to save humanity can end up completely destroying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But overall, it's a great movie. And Will Smith is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, he really is.
He really is one of those guys that can do anything. And he does a great job of a guy that's alone.
Yeah. Yeah. He really does. I don't know if you've seen so during the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, Kevin
Smith.
Kevin James.
The boom mic guy.
So, which is a great story in itself, that he and these filmmakers, these brothers, it's like 6 or 7 brothers, and like 5 brothers and then a brother-in-law, all quarantined themselves in a house down the street from Kevin James, and they only worked with each other to film all these different things. So they were out there, and so the one that he did with the Will Smith, where he's like, Mr. Smith, I'm just trying to get, I'm just
trying to get, what are you doing out here? I'm just trying to get some sound.
Trying to get some sound levels there. So it's really great stuff. But yeah, and I really loved Will Smith. I think reacted to it pretty well on Instagram or whatever. I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, I Am Legend, great. Let's move into one that you had kind of talked about a couple of weeks ago. I think we talked about it a little bit, but we wanted to talk about 28 days. And so let's talk about that one for me.
Yeah. And I'll say when it comes to the zombie genre, I think one of the things that it attracts me to it, and, probably like most people, is, I saw this thing. They say the most terrifying stuff to humans is when that thing is human.
Right.
Because we recognize the humanity in it.
Right.
So it's just even more terrifying when you're now picturing, these are just people.
Right.
That's what they were.
Right.
And now they want to eat you. And for no other reason, then that's just basically the only basic instinct they have left is to eat.
Right.
And then, plus with the zombie stuff, I've always had like, well, at least if there's an apocalypse, let's go with slow walking zombies, because I might be able to last a little while.
Right.
And that.
Yeah.
But then they decided to introduce running zombies. And then I was like, well, I'll just kill myself.
Right. Yeah.
So, 28 Days Later is always, it will always be one of my top films.
Yeah.
My wife hates it. She won't watch it.
Yeah.
She's seen it, but she hates it. So I don't really ever get to watch it.
Yeah.
But the thing with it is it's in the zombie genre, but it's not really zombies.
Yeah.
That's the thing with it, because they're all alive.
Right.
They will starve to death over time, and you see that in the sequel.
Right.
So they're not the classic undead, but they are still something that their drive isn't even to eat. Their drive is to spread what's in them.
Right.
And that's what the drive is. And you see it because they're more vicious in that of like, they'll just beat you to death. Right. Instead of eating you, they'll just beat you to death. And they, as gross as it is, they'll puke blood on you because they're trying to spread it, what's in them.
Which if you had a virus, if it was a virus of some sort or another, that makes sense, that it's all it wants to do is replicate itself and spread itself. So
most viruses don't want to kill you because they want you to survive so they can live in you and spread. And now again, one common theme in horror movies that's very heavy in this is communication. Is key, right? A lot of things can be solved if we could just communicate correctly.
It's just life in general.
And 28 days later, for example, the opening, and it's, spoiler, but at this point, it's been years. It opens with these animal rights activists that storm a lab to let these monkeys that have been captured and being scientific stuff, the classic. Let them out. The scientist says, no, don't. They're infected with rage. Okay. To me, that just sounds like, okay, so they're angry monkeys. I'll get out of the way. Now, if you communicated, hey, they have a disease in them that will wipe out the world. And they will viciously beat you and eat you if you open this cage. They might have gone, you know what? Let's think twice about it. That's the problem. You don't go, they're infected with rage. It's like, okay, so they're angry. Yeah, they're in a cage.
Hey, I'm angry too.
I'd be angry I'm infected with rage. Tiny cage. So you see that a lot in movies, but no, it's just the way they did it, the running, the whole waking up alone. And they did a great job of just making it, you felt the dread in that. And you can feel what what the main character's going through. You can imagine how scary it would be to wake up like that, to not know you're in a hospital alone, what's going on. They do a great job in the horror they do. And it's a low budget film. It's a very simple film, low budget. They just play it right with the angles and the lighting, and they do a really good job.
Well, and I think that's the struggle, or that's a problem I have with a lot of zombie stuff, is that you can make a really great movie on a low budget by using dread and other things rather than the overt, it's just, this is the gross out stuff, and I think zombie, there's a lot of people just spew out mindless zombie junk, and then but you can be clever about it, you can be more sophisticated, and I think 28 Days Later really does a good job of that, so what else is on your list of stuff?
So I have a few, on the stuff I like. I have, Shaun of the Dead on there.
Yes.
That's a classic. They put a comedy spin to it and did it well. Everything about that movie, when he just walks to go to the store to get a soda or whatever, and there's the bloody handprint on the freezer, and he just is oblivious because he's just walking around, doesn't realize you see people in the background being eaten. So he's just walking around, but. They do a good twist on that, and just showing how maybe more of your average dude would end up being in this, And I enjoy a good comedy when they can mix it right. I have that. A couple, like I said, I like when they do kind of a twist to it. The Girl with All the Gifts I have on here. I highly recommend catching. The synopsis of that is you follow this. The main character is a little girl in school, and they were born from women that were infected. These children. So the women were infected. They're zombies. These kids were actually born, and instead of being your classic like in just a zombie, they're like me and you.
Yeah.
They're us. But if they are around a human, you'll see them like they want to attack. They want to eat you.
Okay.
And all the people wear like lotion and stuff that hide their scent.
Okay.
So that's what they do. But it's all in a military setting. They're like studying them. They take classes. They're teaching and trying to see what they can do with this and what makes them the way they are. And then, of course, everything breaks out again, and they get unleashed in the world. But that has an awesome ending that you don't expect. And the way they film it is just unique. It's different.
Yeah.
So I have that on there. Dawn of the Dead, the remake.
Yes.
Again with the running zombies.
So let's get into running zombies.
Yeah.
So let's talk about running zombies a little bit. We had a brief discussion about it a little bit ago, where I dislike the running zombie stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I get what they're doing, because they just need to ramp it up a little bit. Right. But the terror of the original zombie stuff is that they're relentlessly coming for you and at a slow pace, so you've got time to do stuff, but they have the numbers, and they have, it's like the recently during the Afghanistan debacle that we had, one of the things they said was that, the Americans have all the watches, but we have all the time,
Right.
And that's really kind of the way the zombie stuff looks is like it's like, okay, well, they move slowly because time is on their side. They just will relentlessly keep coming for you. And, and there's way more of them than there are of you at this point. And the more that they kill, the more their numbers grow, so
exactly.
So I wouldn't say that it's sacrilegious, I guess, to kind of move them into this running zombie, but it just feels unnecessary because it kind of moves the stuff in a different way. So, and we'll talk about it in one of the segments in the TV show segment when we get to The Walking Dead. That's part of the terror of that is this relentless, slow moving thing. So what do you think? Are you?
No, yeah. I mean, they clearly did the running just to amp up the scariness. They got to put a little twist to it.
Right.
Now with Dawn of the Dead, the remake, I enjoyed it in that, just because it scared me.
Right.
There is much more of when you watch something like that, much more of the feeling of what's the point.
Right.
Because when these things can do dead sprint at you.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you like? You're not getting away from that. You're going to get tired. They will not.
Right.
So you have that bit of a dread, which has more of that's why you need to hold up and stay somewhere and really protect it.
Right.
When they first, in that, I mean, the big opening when the zombie stuff happens, that was just a terrifying one. It's a kid. You rarely see zombie kids. They people stay away from that. And you see the daughter standing in the hallway. Now we as the viewer know, like, uh-oh. Like you need to
she
stay
ain't
away
right
from her.
Yeah, right.
They don't, and then she just comes running at the dad, and that whole scene of throwing her out, and the mom, who's a nurse, is trying to help her husband who's bleeding from the neck on the bed, and she's calling 911 and trying,
right,
and she can't get him, and all of a sudden you just see him sit up on the bed, and we know, like, uh-oh. And they're just so aggressive and more powerful in that, and he's like breaking through the door, it's just, and when you see it now, it also makes it a little easier to believe when you have a running zombie like that the world could go to crap real quick in that apocalypse.
Yes.
Because it's much harder to kill something running dead speed than, a bunch of slow moving zombies.
Right.
I think I read somewhere, I couldn't tell you where, they talked about this because even the CDC has done like joke stuff about zombies.
Sure. Yeah.
But they said realistically in an outbreak, like a classic zombie outbreak, it might last like 3 months.
Right.
because there's no way the military wouldn't be able to get it under control and
Right.
and handle it. But when you have the running zombies, it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Now a lot of things are relying on that now. And now it seems like if you watch some of the newer stuff, everybody's a running zombie.
Yes.
And now it's just like, it's not the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that effect like the Dawn of the Dead did with that remake, or 28 Days Later. I was like, now it's just, now you're just doing it to do it.
Right. Because, you have so let's talk about World War Z. So I want to talk about because that's a really good point to kind of contrast from that, because I read the book before the movie came out. And in the book, it's slow moving hordes of the undead, of the classic. And the way the book is laid out is it's a historic, it's basically this guy from the United Nations that goes around and interviews people after they've already won the great zombie war. So he's interviewing people and he's kind of telling the chronological history from these different people's point of views as to like major historical events of how it started happening. So he interviews the Chinese doctor who discovers like one of the first cases of this outbreak, and then and then he interviews a woman who escaped to like Canada because apparently the zombies freeze in cold weather, and the cold weather stuff, especially like the snow, like will stop them. It lowers their core body temperature.
It'll freeze them.
Yep. So so in that, and then you have like these great wars or these great battles. There's a battle in New York that they have that's very graphic and very detailed, where you have these army guys, basically the U.S. military tries to mount a major offensive against, the Army of the Dead, if you will. And it's a disaster, because they don't understand who their enemy is, and they don't understand that blowing a guy in half now just makes him more like, now he's going to be crawling along, coming to get him. Yeah, exactly. As before he was 6 feet tall or whatever, and you could fight him easier, but now he's just dragging himself along. So when we moved into the movie, they changed that, they changed that to the running zombie stuff. And it, I remember that opening sequence with the trash truck, just like plowing through all the traffic, and and it just spread so fast that
what, 10 seconds, I think.
Yeah,
Brad Pitt do the countdown.
Right, and those people change so quickly, and I was like, I don't know, like I struggled with. My problem was I had read the book beforehand, and that's always a challenge to do, is to watch a movie from a book that you've read before, because they always change stuff. They always make things different, and in ways that may not be all that great, especially if you've taken a really good book and turned it into an hour and a half movie. It's just really, there's just so much stuff that you're gonna have to move around. So I really hated that they actually called it World War Z, because it really was nothing. Yeah, it really was nothing like it. I think the only thing that was fairly consistent was the Israelis, building up the wall around around them that managed to do it. That was somewhat realistic, but yeah. So World War Z. So what were your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. And I started the book. I never finished it, but I knew what it was and what it was really about. And I enjoyed World War Z as a movie. Sure. Again, it should have just been something else. Yeah. It had Brad Pitt attached to it. Yeah. And Brad Pitt's Brad Pitt. Right. And I liked that he was smart. He was in that opening sequence as things are going down. He was smart enough to watch, and observe, and he sees that where he counts in his head, like, okay, it takes 10 seconds for you to change, and he was quick with it. And I love that great scene of when they get to the rooftop to get to the helicopter, and he gets blood on him, right? So he immediately goes to the edge of the roof and stands there, and starts counting to 10 because he's
Right.
like, well, if I'm changing, I'm jumping.
Right.
And he's not going to just wait.
Yep.
And there were some good elements to it. I like the twist of. I kind of like the twist of what it was that could prevent you from being attacked, and so it was interesting. But again, it's just one of those. It should have just been something.
Yeah.
World War Z, like the cool scenes of them climbing on each other and taking the choppers down and stuff like that's neat.
Yeah,
but it should have been its own thing and not attached to the book.
Right. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think we agree there. But I don't want to make it seem like I didn't like World War Z, because I did. Like I actually really enjoyed the movie. I just didn't like that it was named the same thing. So I thought that was super cool how they changed like that, how fast that happened, and just how scary that really is. So, what else is on your list of zombie stuff?
Yeah, I mean the Zombie Land.
Okay, yeah,
because that's funny. Again, they do a good mix of the comedy. They are the running zombies in that one, but it doesn't bother me as much because it's a comedy.
Agreed. Yep.
So it helps play into the comedy aspect with the running, and it had some good emotional stuff in it. With oh my God, Woody Harrelson.
Yep.
And his. When you find out some things about him, it does.
Well, his dog, his dog Buck,
Buck. Yeah, when you find out kind of the truth behind that, and it's so they do a good job at it, and the cast is great. They a good dynamic. So I like the comedy stuff. I have Little Monsters.
Man, wow, I didn't even remember that. That's right.
This one's on, I believe it's on Hulu.
Okay.
Which is, I just happened to, I was like, it's at the end, let's watch it.
Yeah.
And it was neat because you follow this teacher of like, I forget what grade it is, and they're at a park and zombies hit. So it's got some comedy to it. It's got some creepiness to it. Yeah. But it's a really good movie that just is very underrated. Nobody watched it because it just flew under the radar.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that. And then I have some of the bad stuff of like House of the Dead. I saw that in theaters and that was just awful. It's like the scene where they're shooting all the guns and they decide to do the slow-mo close-up of each individual person. They're holding different weapons and it's like, what is going on? It was just a bad movie. Now it's based on a video game, I get it, but a lot of the Resident Evil movies after 2, it pretty much was like, what?
Yeah.
Those movies were bad. Land of the Dead, which was Romero, where he just kind of went off. It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
It's where like the zombies were like learning, and the one led an army of them, which they just didn't do it right. And it was just weird, and I don't know where he was going with it. But there's plenty of bad out there. Too many to list.
Yeah, for sure. So let's kind of, because you mentioned the Resident Evil stuff, so let's kind of transition over to the video game genre. I mean, I can think of two series, obviously the Resident Evil one we just discussed, and then also the Doom series. They have zombies in the Doom series, which I've been a huge fan of Doom for the long time. Although the majority of that stuff is the hell, demon stuff and all that and all that. But they they do have the people that get killed. They kind of stumble around like zombies and stuff, and they kind of attack you and all that stuff. But talk about Resident Evil from the video game perspective. Yeah.
So Resident Evil was the big zombie game. It's still the series is still going. They just had Resident Evil 8. Now they've gone away from zombies in these 7 and 8. It's very more of like a horror game. I personally liked the games. A lot of people they're kind of mixed on it because it's not like Resident Evil. But Resident Evil 1 and the mansion was groundbreaking. Just that first scene of when you come across the first zombie in it and it does this slow like turn its head around, like it's just awesome. And then they remade it for the GameCube and just made it a little cleaner, which was great.
Sure.
Resident Evil 2 which is Resident Evil 2 and 1, that new Resident Evil movie coming out looks like it's pulling a lot from Resident Evil 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then Resident Evil 4, they kind of redefined the genre, and that's when Resident Evil was known for these steady cameras where like it was always a camera in a hallway,
right,
and you could just run and you can only see a little bit, and then you go down the hallway and there's a different camera. Resident Evil 4 did the let's do it over the shoulder,
right, and okay,
really brought that in, and it was groundbreaking and changed the whole series.
Yeah,
now there's a lot of Resident Evil games that are just like Resident Evil 5, and it's like, I don't know, they started to get into like try to get into the running stuff, and it just didn't work. It's some of the stuff they did, it just didn't work. Hence, like you'll see, they just remade Resident Evil 2,
right?
You know, because they know that worked, and they made it with the new engines, and it's probably one of the best zombie games I've ever played.
Yeah.
So it's Resident Evil is one of those things that definitely play Resident Evil 1, 2, so you can see, especially before a movie comes out, you know, and
right.
So you can see it, but there's a good amount of zombie games out there that are good.
So rewind, and this may be before your time, because I am a lot older than you guys. Did you ever play Area 51?
The arcade?
Yeah.
When you in it, if you shoot the first 3 of your teammates, you get to go to the secret mode. Did you know that?
I did not. That's funny.
My dad used to be an over-the-road truck driver.
Okay.
And one summer I went with him from where we lived in Pennsylvania out to California and back.
Okay.
And we would always...
sounds amazing, by the way.
Yeah,
that sounds like a lot of fun.
It was a good time, and but we would always stop at the arcades, at truck stops and stuff, and that's where I would play Area 51.
Okay.
And he showed me the trick. It was like, yeah, you know, you do this. I'm like, oh, that's cool, you know. And you get like the alien vision or the, you know, it's just good stuff.
Right.
But no, so yeah, that is a good game.
Yeah.
The arcade game is great. I
mean, that goes back to like 1995 or something like that, I think, when that one came out. So
it's way out there. But no, that is a good one. I highly recommend playing that in an arcade if anybody's listening.
So some of the newer stuff that we've gotten is, you know, in the Call of Duty series, they've done a zombie mode, you know, which I thought was really kind of funny. You know, I remember in the World War II one that they did. That one was really neat. I had a good time playing the zombie mode in that one.
They're pretty popular modes. A lot of people just get the game to play the zombie mode.
Yeah, and they did actually a pretty great job, I think, of doing that. So like, what about like the Last of Us stuff?
So the Last of Us is hands down my all-time favorite video game.
Okay.
Uncharted series is next for me, but since we're sticking to zombies, Last of Us, and again, that's kind of are they zombies? Are they not? You know, define zombie, because this is that mushroom thing taking over them. Again, they're trying to spread, but they will bite you and basically eat you. But that is a game that does a great job of blending the horror of the zombies, the monsters, the clickers, as they call them. Yeah. Along with like, oh yeah, don't forget, most people are a-holes. Yeah. And you're really going to see it. Right. When the world has ended. Yeah. So they do a great job of that, and storytelling in it. It's storytelling you can't beat. Which is a Frank Darabont thing. I think we'll talk about Frank a little bit in a little bit. You know, of what do people when the chips are down, how do people really react? You know, and I think we have this thought that it's one way, but in every situation that I've ever seen in real life, it's not like that. You know, that's not how human beings react. So Last of Us. So what other series are out there? Like, I guess the Half-Life series, had zombies in it. That's a classic. You know, we got,
Dying Light, I think, was another series that or another game that had come out that was really, really good.
Yeah, that was a good one that played on nighttime, and how like certain zombies were different at night. And let's see, that Left 4 Dead was a good series. That was a co-op, just shoot 'em up. That was a lot of fun. They just came out with Back 4 Blood, which is, it looks like it's part of the Left 4 Dead series, even though it's not, you know. And I've heard that's a fun one. Yeah. Days Gone is one I've been recently playing, which is more of an open world zombie apocalypse thing. It's neat. It's got some good elements. Didn't get the best reviews. I think a lot of people overlooked it. Yeah. I've been enjoying it, but it's one of those, I just have a problem when there's so much you can do in a game. I just get distracted. Yeah. And do too much of the stuff that doesn't matter. Yeah.
I had forgotten, you know, kind of playing off of the Doom stuff. I had forgot that the Return to Castle Wolfenstein had zombies in it too. You know, that was a classic shooter stuff. You know, my kids have been really into well, first of all, talk about Plants vs Zombies, you know, like the phone game. Now the gaming on phones has become more and more of a thing, or in tablets and stuff. You got the Plants vs Zombies, but my kids have really been big into Minecraft right now, and you know, and they have zombies in Minecraft. And
my son went as a creeper for Halloween with zombies,
right? You know, so it's and I don't know if we've just reached peak saturation of the subject matter, you know, at this point, when a safe video game like Minecraft, you know, where it has these in there and nobody's like really scared of them, you know, like nobody's really, it's like, okay, have we run to the end of this, or have we reached the end of you know, kind of where it goes? And I think, you know, kind of transitioning into, did you have any other video game ones that you wanted to mention?
I have one last one that will transition into the next segment. If you're ready for it.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Let's do it.
So this game was done in seasons. Okay. The way they introduced it, and it's a story-driven game where you basically make choices. Okay. You do move around and stuff sometimes, but a lot of it is like, all right, hold left and you can go save this person. Hold right, you save this person. Right. Go straight, you can try to get the gun, type thing. So it's very story-driven. And the first season of it, I haven't gotten a chance to play all the seasons. It's completely out there. Everybody can play it. Yeah. The first season is a game that when I was done, it hit me. I was like, this is an emotional, good story game. And it's Telltale's Walking Dead. Okay. So the first season of the game, the way it ends was just, it's a very, very good game that really draws you in because of the style of the game. Okay. You are basically watching a show that you're playing, right? Is how it is. So it does a great job of drawing you in. The voice acting in it is great. Yeah. It doesn't have any of the Walking Dead people, right? In it. Right. It's its own story, but it's you really have to see it. It's you basically play as this guy that you start off in the back of a cop car, and you know, we don't know what he did, but he's in the back of a cop car. It looks like he's being transported from a prison, and the car swerves off the road because of a zombie. Right. You know, and he gets out. So it's just, you follow this guy and his story of finding a little girl that's alone and on her own, and you're following the story of him getting her to hopefully some safety. Right. And it's fairly new in the beginning of the outbreak, because nobody knows what's going on. Yeah. So it's a great story, a great father-daughter type story of trying to do the right thing, with a great ending. Yeah. At least the first season.
Yeah. Well, so let's kind of talk about some recent zombie TV shows, and then basically I want to get into, so this is not necessarily the gorilla in the room. So so when we talk about zombie TV shows and everything, And I preface all of my lists with, this is the stuff that I have seen myself. And maybe there may be better stuff out there that I've just never seen. But this is stuff that I've dipped into at some point or another and been like, oh yeah, that's interesting, and then you're like, I just have never, I've never really stuck with it. So there's really only one, okay, so I did watch, the Santa Clarita Diet on.
Let's see, I didn't watch that
on Netflix, and it was sillier than I could deal with. Okay. It really was just too silly for me. Although it's not that I didn't find it funny, and I adore Drew Barrymore and Timothy Olyphant. I think they're just amazing people and amazing actors. So. It just was sillier than I could do. I did watch, back originally when it first came on, I did watch a little bit of iZombie.
I didn't watch that one.
Yeah, and it was okay. It didn't really keep me for very long. Pushing Daisies, I thought was a funny series that was, it was a clever little thing that they did. Ash versus Evil Dead.
I didn't watch that. I want to, but I didn't get to watch that.
Bruce Campbell, you can't talk about I feel bad that we're an hour and 20 minutes into the show and I'm just now mentioning Bruce Campbell. Like I feel like this is wrong, but Ash, is just one of my. Bruce Campbell's just one of the greatest. He just really is. It just absolutely, I absolutely love him. So those are kind of the ones that I've watched that I've enjoyed. I'm sure that there's other stuff out there that's better. But how about you? Anything that other than the obvious one that we're going to talk about?
Before we get into the big elephant in the room.
Yep.
There are two that I enjoy. So one is The Last Kids on Earth.
Okay.
It's a Netflix show. It's a cartoon. My son loves it.
Okay.
It's based on a book series, and it's just these group of kids that are kind of left. Their parents get carted away on a bus. They miss the evacuation bus type thing.
Okay.
And now they work together. They're zombies, but it's not scary. The zombies, I don't even know if they eat people.
Okay.
I'm not even sure how that works. But then there's monsters that are introduced and stuff. But it's a fun story that you can watch with your kid.
Yeah.
And so I enjoy that. It's actually got some good humor in it for the adults and the way they do it.
Yeah.
Another one is Black Summer. This is a newer show. They just released the second season not too horribly long ago. I watched it. That is definitely, it's a horror. I mean, it's meant to be scary, and they do there's not a whole lot of dialogue in the show.
Okay.
And they do with the opening breakout. You don't see the initial start. It's maybe a couple weeks into it.
Yeah.
But they do a good job of weaving stories together in it. And they do different point of views where like it opens up with you'll see Sam. That's what it says. And then you look and you're following this person around for a little bit and what they're doing.
Yep.
And then they'll switch to, Jack and Diane. And now you're following and you see how it all intertwines. And there's a great moment in it in the very first episode where you see you follow I'm just going to call her Diane. I can't think of the name. But she's a zombie.
Oh,
so you follow her from waking up in the middle of the street.
Got it.
To chasing people. And it was really neat, and it's neat to watch and see how it works. Now they're running zombies, that's in it. And you really feel like the dread in this one.
Yeah.
But there's neat stuff. And then you'll see a different story. And the way the other person's stories ends is they get into an accident they run somebody over.
Yeah.
And that's who the zombie was. So you see so they do neat how everybody intertwines and what happens. The second season was just released. I watched it again. It leaves you with a good feeling of dread.
Okay.
And but like I said, there's not a whole lot of dialogue in it.
Yeah.
It's really just more of like strangers kind of teaming up and what you got to do and to survive. So I definitely recommend it.
Okay.
But
I'll have to watch it.
Yeah,
I see it's
neat.
Yeah, I see it's on there. Eight episodes.
Yeah, it's short. The first season ends a little like kind of crazy, with some things, but the second season I really like. The second season's a lot more, I guess, scary and more like a dread. And the second season gets more into the people are bad.
Right. Yeah.
But now the big elephant. Right?
Yeah. So let's talk about it. So based on a comic book series, or I should say a graphic novel series, which have you read?
Yeah, so it ends around issue 200, I think, somewhere around there.
Right.
I'm in like 160, 170.
Okay.
I know how the comic series ends because at one point I was like, you know what, I don't think I'll ever finish this. So I looked it up.
Yeah.
Robert Kirkman just one day was like, oh, this is it.
I'm done.
No lead up to it. He was like, I'm done.
Yep.
Here's the end. And he wrapped it up. But yes, I read most of it.
Yeah. And so I've read the first, I think I read like the first dozen or so. And I've kind of fell away from it, which I don't understand why, because I actually really enjoyed everything I read up to that point. The art, the style of the artwork is really great. Kirkman's style of art is really great. His Rick Grimes character is super cool looking. But the story diverges from the TV show diverges from the comic pretty early on. There was a couple of decisions that were made, pretty early on that they wanted to do something different, which is fine. I mean, it is what it is. So, so the comic book I've really enjoyed. I really did. I thought it was great. So coming into the Walking Dead TV series, you get Andrew Lincoln is a sheriff's deputy, and he's involved in a shootout with his buddy,
aka the Punisher.
Yep, exactly. So they are involved in a shootout. He gets shot and ends up passing out and goes to sleep. And then he wakes up in a hospital bed, and there's nobody around, so he starts walking through the hospital, and written on the escalator door, or the door at the end of the hallway, is, do not open, dead, something like that.
Don't open, dead inside.
Yeah. Dead inside, which is like, what does that mean? So, so we'll talk, I want to talk about this initially because at no time ever in The Walking Dead did they ever refer to the dead as zombies. They always are just the dead, or walkers or
whatever they come up with.
But they never actually call them zombies, which I think is pretty funny. I can appreciate it. They want to try and separate it, I guess, or whatever. But one of the main creators of the series is Frank Darabont. Did you see The Mist? I think we've talked about this one. Did you see the movie The Mist?
It's got a lot of The Walking Dead in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Frank, I think you could definitely see his major influence on the two series together. So
first two seasons and before his departure and what happened there.
Right. So and I have to say the first two seasons were spectacular. The first 2 or 3 seasons were, I think the show pushed through in season 3 and 4 pretty well without Frank, but I think as the time has gone on, you can see without his influence on the series, it's definitely fallen off from a content perspective. But talk about that first season for you, because I know for me it was it was spectacular. Like, I mean, it
Yeah.
was just really great from that first episode. I mean, you even talk about seeing a kid as a zombie. I mean, the show starts off with that, you know,
Right.
really kind of kicks out. So talk about that first season for me.
Yeah, the first season. So I remember when they talked about a zombie show coming, and again, I'm like, oh, all right, like let's see, from a studio that just showed classic movies. You know?
Right.
I was like,
Yeah. AMC.
Let's see how this goes.
Right.
And when you watch that first episode, of course, the terror of him waking up in the hospital, and you know, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm spoilers all around.
Yeah.
You know, you've had your chance to really watch.
Right. Yeah. It's like 10 years old at this point,
yeah.
folks. So.
Everybody, it was at a point where, kind of like Game of Thrones, everybody was watching it at one time.
Yes.
But you don't even see a real zombie right off the bat. Even when he's in the hospital, you see the fingers coming through the door.
Right.
But that's it. And it was enough that, you know, he's walking down the stairwell and it's pitch black and he's trying to like light matches to get some light. You're waiting for that, like,
right.
You know, that and nothing happens. And he gets outside and you just see the bodies and the bags and, you know, it's just dead. And he's just wandering. Like, he goes home. He has no idea what's going on, you know, he, you know, just watching him traverse that first episode of really trying to figure out, he ends up running into Morgan, who's a
Lenny James. Lenny James is hands down one of the best actors out there. And I was so excited when I saw him in there, because I had seen him in a bunch of stuff. And I remember seeing him in Jericho. I don't know if you watched Jericho at all, Jericho. You know, which I actually really loved. I thought that was a great series. That it ended when it did. So which is, it's always one of those things I get a little bitter with TV shows. Like I refuse to really get involved in a show. I shouldn't say refuse. I don't like getting into a season 1 show, because I always just, I feel, I hate being disappointed when they don't renew it. And I'm like, man, I only got 12 episodes of that show, you know, or whatever. So when they killed off Jericho, it was really, but I loved Lenny James in Jericho. I thought it was really great. And so when he popped up in this, I was like, oh my God, I love him. He's so great. So
and he had such a quick role too. He wasn't really meant to go anywhere.
Right.
In the show. And his basic role was just to get Rick on his feet. Like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. Yeah. And even his tiny role in that first episode of, you know, and he can't put his, for lack of a better term, put his wife down. Yeah. You know, and he sees her and just like, you know, it's just
the torture of that. I mean, that has to be just a horrific the torture of that, seeing her in that state.
And it's still new, because, you know, you still have that, like, maybe I could hold out hope and something will happen and they come back. And, but seeing Rick really navigate this world in that first season of just trying to find his family and just, that's his only drive. Like you really get a sense of what this man is. Right. And how he is, especially when I think it's at the end of the first episode, he goes back to that zombie he saw. Yeah. That was like half a body crawling near a bike. It was the first zombie he saw, you know, and he freaked out and left. And he goes back to that one and apologizes to it. Yeah. For what had happened and puts it down. Yeah. You know, like he understands, and you can tell he's a good man of just like, hey, like, this sucks. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but let's have you move on type thing. Right. To just the whole, when it ends with him in the tank. That, you know, like that's because he goes to the city because he doesn't know, you know,
he doesn't know. Yeah.
To the city. Yep. Boom, all the zombies, and he ends up in a tank, and he shoots the gun in the tank at the one zombie, and he just goes deaf, you know, because he's shooting a gun in a tank. In a tank, it's a terrible idea. Yep. It is, but it was very faithful the way they did it. Yep. At first, and you got a good sense, and they introduced, you know, characters and new characters, and Merle and Daryl. They're not in the comics; they're for the show only. The way it was a good opening, and you know, comparing it to the comics, you know, they play out the Shane thing much more in the show. Obviously, he gets 2 full seasons in the show, where in the comics, he's I think it's like the first 5 pages. He's, you know, he doesn't make it. He doesn't make it, which I was fine with. You know, I mean, had we not seen that, we would not have gotten as much of
you know, of him as we did, and I think that would have been a shame because we would have been kind of robbed of that. You know,
I'm glad that they got that out of him.
Yes,
because one, it gives us more of John Bernthal and opened up doors for him. That he got, and seeing his anger and his contrast between Rick, especially in that second season of like, you could see he's just a completely different man where yes, he's cold, and that is helpful in this world, but he's just a completely different guy, not willing to work with people, and just
he's lost. He's really lost, and this is a great comparison between the two. Is he's lost that connection with what makes you human, you know, and what really makes you versus you're alive. Technically, you're alive, but you might as well be a zombie. You know, if you're going to treat everybody that way, and all you care about is that, you know, is that power, I guess, or whatever. So because then you get that you get different stages as the series moves on. You get different stages of people who weren't put in check by a Rick, you know. So you get the governor, you get, you know, you know, you get Negan, you get people who were never villains, who were never put in check by a guy like Rick. You know, it's like, you know, it's like whatever, but I don't know, the Negan stuff is
Negan's the best.
He really is, you know, and you look back on it and you think to yourself, okay, well, and I'm not caught up. Like I have not watched any of the latest seasons, so I don't know what's happening between him and Maggie. You know, I don't know where that's going just yet, so I can't really talk to it. But you know, season 2, where they try to head to the CDC, you know, I think is
they end up on the farm, and
they end up at the farm. You know, when they get, I think when they have that reveal with the CDC stuff, you know, where the guy says it's we're all infected, you know, I think when they finally give you that reveal,
we don't know that at the end of season 1, right?
Right. You don't find that out until
Rick.
That we're all infected, you know, and I thought that was really great that they did that way, the way they ended that. I thought that was really, really spectacular. At the end of the day, there's really no, like they have this mission to go to the CDC, and then at the end of the day, they don't have any answers. They don't have anything, you know, and so that really kind of sets up the sense of dread that this is where it's going to be, like, for the rest of existence. This is how it's going to be, you know, and there's no saving grace or anything like that. And so that it's kind of like, okay, well, might as well burn the ships, because we're not going back, you know. There's no going back to where we were. So watching The Walking Dead, going into season 2, where they go to the farm, they meet Lauren Cohen, Maggie, Herschel, you know, and it's kind of this, remember what life used to be like, you know, and this is kind of, you know, this little piece of heaven that you're kind of living in, and stuff like that. So, you know, and then they move on to, was it the prison? I think that after Herschel's, they moved to the prison. And
that's where, because they have to leave Herschel's because it gets overrun. And we lose a decent amount of characters there, side characters, and you know, one of those things, again, spoilers, is, you know, season 2 is when they finally take care of a member of the group that's a big problem with Rick. And that's when you get the confirmation that we all come back, because Rick waits after killing this person, because the person was going to kill him. You know, Rick waits to see, will he get back up, because he wasn't bitten. You know, I killed him. And he gets back up. And that's when you get the confirmation of, oh, it doesn't matter how you die. You're coming back. Which again makes it more terrifying, because it's a thing that technically there is no end in sight. You know, until finally somebody dies and they don't come back. And then it's over. So you always have the fear of, which again helps that make it more believable of it could spread, because if it's you could just die and come back, you know, somebody dies in their sleep when the world doesn't know what's going on. They come back and, you know, eat their family.
Right.
It's but yeah, season 3 is when we get introduced to our first real villain of the comics, the governor, who in the comics, he was much more, I would say, brutal in the comics. You know, again, spoiler alert for everybody. I mean, the first real introduction with him is Rick talking to him, and he grabs Rick and just lops off his hand.
Right.
Just like that. Like, there was no real, like, they're not fighting. He was just, boom, lops off his hand to show. And, you know, that's one thing they didn't do in the show. I mean, in the comics, Rick, the rest of his days has one hand.
Right.
After that. And so he's definitely brutal. The show shows he's brutal. I mean, we see it. I mean, anybody that keeps zombie heads, you know, something's going on.
Right.
With him. But that's where we start seeing a breakdown really between like comics and the show of where they keep some of the main overall themes, some of the stuff, you know, the prison, the governor, the Negan coming up. And, but, you know, in the comics, Angela is a staple in the comics. She's a badass in the comics. She's one of the most powerful people in it. Whereas in the show, she's just annoying.
Right.
You know, I was like, this is just frustrating.
Yeah.
But season 3, we get the intro of Michonne and
oh man, the intro to Michonne was, I mean, her character was so awesome. You know, I mean, anytime you're walking around with a pair of zombies next to you with their arms and teeth pulled out, you know, you're like, holy smokes, you know.
Well, carrying a katana, like, like, all right, this person's something.
Yeah, she was a total badass, you know, initially coming out, and still is, you know, pretty much a badass. So, so I mean, so The Walking Dead overall, you know, I don't know why I still stick with it. I don't really have an answer for it. I don't know where it stopped being good. Maybe, I mean, the terminal stuff was good, but I think Negan dragged out longer than it needed to. You know, I think they dragged out Negan longer than, the resolution to the Negan situation dragged out longer than I thought that it needed to, you know. So yeah,
I think with the Negan, they messed up. The big problem was they messed up with the way they ended that season.
Yeah.
Where Negan was introduced and he does the eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
Right.
And you know somebody dies, but it's from the angle of somebody dying.
Right.
And that's how the season ended. I think that threw a lot of people off.
Yeah.
And that started we're not coming back because we're just angry.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big mistake on their end.
Yeah.
I get why they did it. I mean, it's a hell of a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, and it's tough. And as the show goes on, because you're not up to date on this season.
Right.
Well, you're up to date on most of it. You really see Negan's character, and they rely heavily on him.
Yes.
In the show afterwards.
Right.
Because I mean, Negan in the comics is a big presence. He's actually like a big dude in the comics, and you know, not the quite like
Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. But his portrayal is pretty faithful to him in the comics.
Yeah.
If this was an R-rated show where he could curse as much as Negan, it would be spot on.
Yeah.
You know, but they can't make the show like that.
Right.
But a lot of what he does is he respects Rick. He respects Carl.
Yes.
A lot. He really loves Carl, especially in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
They have quite, as the comics go on, they have quite the relationship in the comics too.
Yeah.
As they go on, but they hint out on the show. But the problem is just you can only see so much in the show, and they have to make it different. They're like, well, we can't follow it picture by picture of the graphic novel. We got to do our own thing with it.
Right.
And that's kind of an issue as well, because they change things that just are like Carl isn't quite as badass as he is in the comics.
Yeah.
And,
yep.
You know, that great scene of the two psycho kids, you know, with Carol doing the look at the flowers.
Yeah.
In the comics, it was two little boys that were like that, and it just like that. The one boy ends up killing the brother because he's like, I'll just come back and I can play with it. Just clearly children that you probably shouldn't have around, but the problem is they're children. What do you do with that? It's not like a grown adult that's psycho. It's a child. And in the comics, there's a great thing where the adults are all talking about what to do. What do we do with this kid? And you just see Carl kind of walk away, who's a child, and gets in the van to talk to the kid.
Yeah.
Right. And then you just hear a gunshot in the comics. That's what it is. And they go, and then we find out Carl talks to his father, Rick, and just goes, yeah, I killed him. And he's like, I heard you guys talking about it. He goes, I knew you couldn't do it, so I put him down. Yeah. Because that's how Carl, he knew. No, we can't keep this psycho kid around who could kill us. But in the show, you don't really see that as much. Which I guess I understand. And the way it's going now, Judith seems to be like the Carl replacement, and it's going to grow up in this world. Well, and the original actor of Carl in the show decided that he didn't want to act anymore, and so instead of recasting him, and I mean, they were 6 seasons in, 5 seasons, 6 or 7 seasons in. I think it's 5 or 6 seasons in. It's too late to recast, so if he decides he wants to retire and everything, which is fine. I mean, that's his personal choice and stuff. And I'll say they worked it well, his ending. Because the show really is about Rick. And the comics are about Rick, really. Now the comics are more about Carl towards the end, but it's about Rick and shaping him and really him trying to be a man that's really trying to bring the world together. That's his end goal. We got to remember our humanity and who we are, and the real bad guy are the walkers. The walkers, they don't have zombies in their world. And Carl, what Carl does and the way he goes because of what he does. And he talks to his father about hey, I did this. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to die now because of this. But look at what I brought in. We now have a doctor. Because I chose to help. Instead of see ya, get out of here. And it really opens Rick up to another perspective of, you're right. We need to help. We need to be there. That's what we're here for. We need to rebuild. We need to remember our humanity, and we need to rebuild. And I think maybe that's where it got off track. There was this vengeance theme that they were just trying to get Negan, and all them, and it was just about revenge, and that's not what the theme of the series was. It was all about, you have to fight bad people and you have to fight the undead, but the reason is that we need to rebuild, and we need to be better, and so overall, I will stick with the show to the bitter end. I really will. We're in the end. We're in the end game. I will stick with the show to the bitter end, because I'm morbidly curious where they'll go to, and at the end of the day, I do love a lot of the characters. I really do. Carol has grown quite a bit. Daryl has grown tremendously. Michonne is completely night and day different. Even Negan's character arc in the series has been really, really great. From his move from playing the villain to whatever it is he is now. Which is it's a sort of anti-hero almost. He's not a good guy, but I think that's the theme of Rick and Negan is really, they are kind of the same dude in that they're. In order to be a good guy, sometimes you have to do bad things, and that is a pretty big theme that they hit on a lot, but I think they might hit on it too much, and that could be a problem. And in the latest season, Negan is having a great conversation with somebody. Since it's the latest season, I don't want to really ruin too much. And you haven't seen it either, but he has a great conversation with somebody where he just basically explains well, what did you expect me to do? You murdered my men in their sleep. Because that's what they did. They were I have to look back on it. I think Cobra Kai
Cobra Kai did a great job of kind of going back and saying, hey, look, this was the experience from the other guy's perspective. You know, he's dating this girl, and all of a sudden this new kid moves into town, tries to fight me for no reason, you know,
Right.
and then like he takes my girlfriend, you know, like all this different stuff, and you're like, what? Wait, did that really happen? And then you rewind and you go, well,
like,
okay, I guess that's exactly how it happened, you know. So watching how they handled Negan, you know, they took what other people were saying was like, hey, these are all bad guys, you know, but even though they'd never done anything to them, you know, like Negan and the you know, and maybe they would have at some point, you know,
right.
but
you know, we don't know,
but we don't know. Rick and them just rolled into town and were like, oh yeah, we'll take those guys down, you know, and they did. And Negan's like, so how else would you react to that? Like if Negan and them did that to them in the middle of the night, that Rick would react the exact same way, you know, like he would react. I don't know that he would beat him to death with a
but hey,
baseball bat.
He's done some worse things. And no, and exactly that's how it would be. And, you know, because Negan hits on that and he's like, you know, he talks about it, he's like, you killed these men. I'm like, you killed fathers, husbands, you know, like, don't act like you're innocent here. You know, Negan is a more brutal guy and he isn't really a good guy technically, but, you know, he explains, and they harp on that a lot. And you see that a lot. And, you know, I just want to touch on it quick because I know we've been going for a while.
Yeah, we need to wrap up. Yep.
The Walking Dead, the other shows that they have are really good. Fear the Walking Dead I like more than The Walking Dead.
Okay, so talk to me about that one real fast, because I watched the first season and just couldn't do it. Does it get better after the first season? Yeah,
so the second season really adds some horrible elements in it that just messed up things in a good way. It's hard to explain, you know. It's just I couldn't get past the heroin addicted kid. Like I had a really hard problem with the heroin addicted kid. He's a big part of the show. Okay. But his story is something you really care about. Okay. I enjoyed the second season. They add some interesting elements into that. Okay. And if I hate saying this because who wants to tell somebody, watch the first two seasons and then it gets like really awesome. Yeah. The third season is hands down one of the best seasons of television I've ever watched. Okay. The writing, the acting, the storytelling in it is so good in that third season. Okay. That's when I was like, holy cow, like that's when it overtook Walking Dead for me. That's when they hit the stride. Okay. And then World Beyond is their newest one, which I would watch it as well. This is the final season. It's a limited series. They only doing 2 seasons. And this one is about the kids, right? The kids that have grown up in the zombie. The kids that grew up in the zombie apocalypse, but in safe zones, and they venture out. But the World Beyond is really tying together a lot of stuff that happens in Walking Dead. Okay. You're seeing that crossover now into this, so you know it's about to build up. Yeah. You know, like they just introduced I call her the Trash Panda because I can't remember her real name. Yeah. The woman that lived in the trash on Walking Dead. Okay. She has just now entered the World Beyond show. Got it. Okay. Because she's part of this military presence in that show. Yeah. So now we're officially getting the tie together between these shows. Okay. Okay. So, you know, I recommend, especially it's 2 seasons. Like, that's all it's going to be. Yeah. Watch it to see how it ties together. Because we're still supposed to get, like, Rick Grimes movies. Yeah, the Rick Grimes movies is still a go, I guess, or whatever. So we'll see where he's at. And even I'm losing interest in that. Like, at this point. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'll watch it. I imagine when Rick returns at some point, you know, with that whatever vehicle they bring him back in, I'll watch it. And I think that's what they're supposed to be doing with this show. Because now that they've introduced her, I mean, that's all we want to know is what happened to Rick between the helicopter ride to you showing up here. Yeah. We'll see how it ends up. But well, that was really great, man. You know, the zombie stuff is always fun. You know, I mean, from everything from Zombieland, you know, which I just think is just hilarious and just really great to you know, to the video game stuff. One of the best openings. Yeah, right, for sure. You know, the cardio, you know, all that stuff, and you know, and then ended up with The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead really was phenomenal to watch, you know. And I think the thing about it is
even people who aren't zombie fans could get into zombie genre fans could get into The Walking Dead and enjoy it, because it was really about the people, and that's really what it comes down to. What really makes those series great is you care about the people. It doesn't really matter what circumstance they're in, but all right, so let's move on to the Nerd Box, final segment of the show, the Nerd Box. So Colby Zell, a friend of yours, sent you a crossover question. So, and I love these. This is super nerdy. Could a Star Trek transporter beam someone into or out of a TARDIS? So I'm going to let you, since that's your friend, I'm going to let you, I'm going to put you on the spot and make you.
So,
although I am probably the Star Trek fan. So
you're probably going to have more science behind behind your reasoning. Right. So the TARDIS, I don't know Doctor Who well. I was never a guy that got into it. I know of it. I know what it's about. I know the TARDIS and everything.
Right.
Star Trek, my experience with Star Trek is more the new JJ movies. That's more of my speed. I would say, based on from what I can tell and what I know of both series, I'm gonna say no.
Right.
My reason being is the TARDIS seems to be something that exists out of a normal realm of any type of a reality, in the sense it can time travel. It's a whole different. It's a spaceship, but it's this thing where in Star Trek, yes, it's science fiction, it's futuristic, right? But they still ground it in it's normal math, it's normal what they need to do in order to transport you somewhere. It needs to be a normal, almost physical location, right? Like, they transport to the Enterprise in the first of the new Star Trek movies while it's moving, but that's still moving within a plane that is a normal reality. Right. You know what I mean? Whereas the TARDIS, if it's time traveling and going through what universes or however that works, I don't think you could lock into it. Yeah. To put somebody in there. Yeah. Now that's if it's moving. If it's standing still, that could be a different story. If it's landed and it's where it needs to be, then I'd say yes, you can get into it that way. Yeah, and I tend to agree with you exactly with that too, because the TARDIS, my understanding of the TARDIS is very limited also, but that it's somewhat of a spaceship and time machine type thing, and that it has this chameleon circuit that's built into it to make it look like something that is not out of the ordinary for whatever timeline it's in, if you will. So, it can look like a 19, whatever phone booth, which is what we get with Doctor Who, I agreed. I think once it's moving as a time machine itself through time, I don't think that the beam would work. Although that is a plane into existence at some point or whatever, but my Star Trek knowledge is that, it has to be, it has to be in space, or it has to be, in physical reality. And there's places where you can't beam. There's always going to be stuff that gets interference. I mean, Star Trek's riddled with issues where people are being beamed and they never make it, or they get caught in some sort of atmospheric, disturbance. And so they try and re-pull them back together and stuff. So there's all kinds of stuff. So the Star Trek beam is not foolproof. It's not anything. So I think the TARDIS is safe, at least like you said, with it being, kind of, if it's sitting still. Maybe if it's sitting still and somebody's in it, you probably beam somebody in and out. That'd be fine. But yeah. Right. So that being said, I'm hoping that there's some hardcore Doctor Who fans listening. Yeah, maybe they can set us straight, correct us, or whatever it may be in the comment. Yeah, if they've managed to sit through our zombie thing to get to the tail end on this one. But Morg, thanks so much for doing the show with me this week. It's been a lot of fun. I always love talking about the Undead. It's a good time, and The Walking Dead is really just it's one of my favorites. It really is. Yeah, it's still my favorite. I love what they're doing with the new season, and it's still
Yeah.
Still holding me. Still got me.
Yep.
It might just be us.
I think it's just you and I, but
supporting them.
But it is what it is. So, but yeah, thanks so much. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for watching on YouTube. If you have any questions, comments for the show, please let us know. Like the show, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, subscribed already. Other than that, Mork, I will see you when I see you, buddy.
Catch you on the flippity flop.
All right, we'll see you. Bye.
Bye.